listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Welcome to Second Wind. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. I'm your host, Joyce Buford. And you know that Second Wind was created especially for you. If you're out there listening, you perhaps are a woman in transition. Your life has changed. You didn't plan it. It just happened. So now what are you going to do? How are we going to make it through this transition? Well, that's why I created it. Because when I went through my divorce in 2000, there was nothing. And so I wanted you to have this tool. My guests are all wonderful women that have gone through their own transition, whatever it may be. Maybe life change through partners, jobs, health, you name it. We go through it, don't we? But I want you to know you first have to start out getting very clear about who you are. What do you want out of your life? You know, when you're back in the single role or changing a job, that's the time. When you're feeling the pain, you're hurting from the transition, that's the time to do your soul searching. So I hope that you'll refer to discovery. Discover who you are so that you can get your second wind and make it even bigger than you had anticipated. So I thank you for being here today. And we are indeed again honored by a wonderful guest who has gone through her own transition, and she's sharing her story today. You know, the neatest thing is, and I'll give you a clue right now, to be successful in this transition, you have to be connected with your sisters or your brothers that are going through transition and reach out for support. So I thank you for being here. You've already made a great choice. Now, let me tell you about our guest today. In 2006, Tracy Cromwell was diagnosed with pre-diabetics. Tracy had to start making better lifestyle choices. A chronic yo-yo dieter most of her life, the news of this diagnosis was frustrating and just another failure. But this diagnosis set her on a solid path to wellness. Today, Tracy is healthy and strong, taking on century bike rides, eating in a way that supports her body, and feeling good in her own skin. Tracy is a published author of Your Personal Journey with Food, an interactive book that will take the reader on her own journey, where she will uncover her current unique relationship with food. Now, Tracy received her health coaching and nutrition training from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and Precision Nutrition. She received her personal training, senior fitness specialist, and weight loss specialist certificates from the National Academy of Sports Medicine. So yes, she's well trained. Tracy loves cycling, hiking, boating in the San Juan Islands, singing in the Seattle-based choir. I love that. You know I love music. And spending time with her incredible family. So welcome, Tracy.
Good morning. Hello. How are you?
It's great to have you here.
You too.
Is it not true that when you got that story, that transition, that defining moment that I call it, your life must have just been a mess? Would we say that? Could I say that? A mess?
Yes.
Don't we all feel like that sometimes? We're just torn down. We're just like, my life's a mess. You know, sorry. I put those words in your mouth. Sorry about that. I was reflecting.
I love it because it really was, I got diagnosed in the middle of a mess. I was in a job that I had only been in. I'd switched to a different residential construction company. I'd been in residential construction for a long time as purchasing manager, estimating. I always joke with people, if you need a house built and you need to know how much concrete goes in that foundation or the lumber, I can do that for you. Anyway, and so that was where my career was. And I switched from one company to another for the money.
Yes.
And within about a year and a half, I was pre-diabetic, not sleeping very well, highly stressed, didn't feel like I could do anything that would help the situation because the machine was going so fast and it was so big. It was such a big company. I realized I was a little tiny dot in this spectrum of this company. And so when I got diagnosed, it was like I had noted in my bio. Yeah, it was just, it was sort of like I was unhappy with my job. I put on a bunch of weight. I'd messed up again. How come I didn't appreciate my body sooner? But then they always said this was going to happen when you got older. So I may as well accept it. So I sort of accepted it for a little while and just, went through a lot of mindset challenge because I never really appreciated my body anyway. I always had a volatile relationship with it to begin with. So it was sort of this, well, it kind of, let me down. And, but what was interesting also during my time when I got diagnosed, it took me about 4 years to reverse it because I still didn't know how to do it or what I was doing. I was still in some denial. It was still my body's fault. And that in that interim of time as well, the housing crisis happened and I lost my job. So it was just another nail in the coffin. And as far as I was concerned, I was the job and I didn't know how to function without that. And so I definitely went into a self-pity mode. And I remember that's when the iPhones kind of had come out and I sat and I played little games on them for hours at a day because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do with myself. I had never been in this mode. And so I was playing like Diner Dash and there's one about hair cutting and, all this stuff was just, so I just kind of got stuck. And what was interesting was when I did, going back to 2006, when I did find out I was pre-diabetic, it was sort of also a note that I could bring home to my family to ask for support because I thought I was always one that would eat to please others, or I didn't want to be the one that was high maintenance, whatever those labels were. Yeah. So when I had this note, or this diagnosis, I was able to tell my husband, I said, I shouldn't have the pancakes for breakfast. My body can't handle it. Hey kids, let's start to integrate different foods. They needed to do it too anyway, right? So it was just, it gave me that little bit of power to be able to start at least setting some boundaries for myself with other people. And then when I lost my job, it was kind of another thing. I think if I'd stayed in that company and all that, I don't know who I would be today. I definitely was somebody that I didn't recognize. And so all of a sudden it was that voice in my head said, hey, well, what about, you always wanted to be a personal trainer. Because when I was young, I really liked athletics. And I was like, well, who's going to want to work with me? I can't even handle my own food. I'm not even exercising right now. And so I shut that down pretty quick. Yeah. And I floundered around, not listening to myself. I also thought about going back to school and becoming a naturopath. And I shot myself down with that. And, going to medical school or something again. And so it was interesting. It took me, again, like I said, I learned different diets. I probably yo-yo dieted about 5 times in that 4 years of reversing my diagnosis. And in that mode of time, I learned about what was called health coaching, was just kind of coming on the cusp of things. And I realized that I also realized I wasn't the only one, because in my mind, I was the only one going through this. And but I can't tell anybody because that's shameful, and I branded myself with shame and job loss shame, diagnosis shame, and all of a sudden I realized I'm not alone, is what I learned. And so I started looking for schools that I could actually be a coach instead, because I found out, yes, I can get diagnosed at the doctor, but where the challenge is when you go home.
Yes.
And how do you change your life at home, at work, and all of those things? And those were the areas that I got challenged. It was my career that catapulted me into these eating habits that weren't supportive. And all these other little things had happened that threw off my game again, and so it was a challenging time. I don't regret it happening, though, at this point in my life. I don't regret it at all.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point that I think sometimes we forget about. Anytime we go through a transition, anytime it changes and shakes our foundation, we go through the grief process. So a lot of that doubting self, who me, why me, getting angry, my body won't work. Why me? You're a very attractive woman. So, it had to be something like, well, this can't happen to me. And so what that is, to give it some perimeter around it, is to realize we're going through grief. And we have to go through all those stages, as much as we hate every one of them, just to help us make sense into a neutral where you can say, oh, I think I'll be a coach.
Well, what was interesting too was, I look back at photos of me when I was younger and the different times when I was technically in shape, and then when I was overweight, technically in shape or overweight. Yeah. And I remembered the emotion I was carrying through each of those photos, but I still wasn't good enough. If I could just be perfect, if I could just be good enough, I'd find the ideal relationship, I'd be in the ideal job. And therefore it's my body's fault, because I'm not perfect enough, because, I get, this little baggage that's in your head, and I would criticize myself. Even when I was in really good shape, I saw imperfection. I saw, my mind was very twisted on what it saw. I didn't look like the model in the magazine. I have cellulite. I think that's what I'm saying. But, as I was growing up, and when I hit 18, I was trying to be that person, right. And I graduated high school in 1985. And so that's when you had, definitely, you weren't allowed to have any muscle, or you were supposed to be a tiny little thing. And I just wasn't able to accomplish that. So it was my body's fault, it's my body's fault. And so one thing I've realized, and a goal for me as I coach people, or if a younger woman is hearing me too, is that, our body is our best friend. It's our number one teammate. And it took me a long time to realize that. And it's my responsibility to help my teammate be its best, and how can I do that in a loving, caring way? Consideration through food, consideration through my mind thought, my processes and stuff like that. It's always doing its best for me. And
you'd like for me to call you Coach Terry,
Tracy. Or Tracy, yeah, Coach Tracy.
Terry, Tracy.
Tracy.
So, Coach Tracy, why is it that when we start to mature, age, whatever you feel comfortable calling it, that we realize that our body can go through these transitions. When we were in our 20s, we could eat this. Now, when we do this in our 40s or 50s, we perhaps get a different reaction. Gluten-free has been a big one. I'll use that as the example. When I was in my 20s, no. In my 50s, yes, it started showing signs. So what is it about our body that does it wear out? Does the food that we get change? Because that certainly happens. So do you have some input on this? I bet you do.
Yes, one thing I would like to think of the word debunk is the thing that we always say when we're younger, we can do this, we can eat these things. Technically, our body's still not able to handle those food items. It's just not meant to. But the cells, this is my theory, is the cells turnover is a lot faster when we're younger.
Yes.
So, but what was interesting for me was I grew up on dairy and bread and cereals and eggs. I always, and that's stuff that's supposed to be good for you. Right. I always felt sick. I had intestinal problems, a lot of anxiety associated with that food. I was not able to eat those things. Sugar, no, but I did it anyway, because we had that belief, well, you're young, you can eat anything. So first thing I would love to tell everyone is really, no, our body doesn't know what to do with this processed stuff. Even when we're young and they're learning more and more, it really affects the way we think, and it affects our hormones, and it can disrupt the chemical reactions in our mind, because it's messing with our poor intestinal tract, which is, it's our life. Our intestinal tract is really so important. And we used to think of it as just a garbage hole, right? You put anything down there, but what we consume becomes our, and absorb becomes our blood, becomes our cells. So what can happen is, as our metabolism, it does start to slow down and cell renewal slows down, we aren't able to, again, my theory is detox that stuff out. Our liver isn't able to do it. And if you keep bombarding it over and over and over, your body just can't get rid of it. And that's why we see, pre-diabetes doesn't happen overnight. Type 2 diabetes doesn't happen overnight. It's a consistent, inflammatory response that happens with the body receiving something that it can't continue to process. And sadly, we have kids today that are type 2 diabetics and are possibly going to die before their parents. So that the thought that we can handle it when we're young, I think as humans, we need to remember that's really not true. We can't. And so as we get older, though, what I decided was, and I loved what you said too, the grieving process. So sometimes you have to grieve like a food item. There's a food item that meant something to you as a child. And I have mine. But when I eat them, my body can't handle that. And so I did grieve the loss of the food item, but I realized that the food, whatever that was, for me, it was actually Kraft caramels poured over popcorn.
Oh.
But to me, it was the memory of my whole family sitting around together watching scary movies on a Friday night. That was the really warm feeling I got associated with it. Or let's say a Thanksgiving dinner, a Christmas dinner. And once I was able to say, well, I can recreate that feeling with something that'll be not only supportive to my body, but to my whole family's body, their bodies as well. It's about the community of getting together. So definitely grieved those things. So my thought is if we can learn as our body ages and also look past what's been a stereotypical answer that we've been fed, especially women, we've been fed a lot of stereotypical information. If you can, number one, again, your body is your number one teammate, learn how to drive it and what it thrives on. it's incredible. Like we're seeing now, I'm sorry, but 70 isn't the 70 it was before. You can live a vibrant, healthy, wonderful life full of energy, into your hundreds. We've seen that. So it's figuring out what your body functions best on and putting blinders up to whatever anyone else tells you it should be doing. It's your body. Yeah.
So what happens, Tracy, when a woman first gets symptoms? Let's say we're rolling along and we're getting symptoms of achy hands, bloating, some of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most of us will live with that quite a while before we go, this is just not working. So, what do we do when we realize and have that thought, this is not working? What would you recommend we do?
Wonderful question. So one thing which I love is just, if the sooner you notice something's not working, that's a gold star, because you're paying attention. And one of the chapters in my book, we talk about symptoms are a gift. Symptoms are your body speaking to you, and your body will speak to you by saying, hey, I feel full of energy. That's a symptom of things going well. Or I don't have a headache. I want to go do something. I want to go move, that's a symptom. But also, like you said, puffy hands, aching joints, maybe you're getting foggy in the head, things like that. Number one is noticing it. Number two is saying this is just my body telling me something, and it's so important to respect the message.
Yeah.
It's up to us. I always want to say, like, if you can make it as fun as you can to be the super sleuth, say, I'm going to figure this out. We're going to work on this together. The subconscious will say, okay, let's figure this out. Mm-hmm. And so one area that, just a small list, there could be many reasons why you may have bloating or things like that. But a lot of times it could be, sodium. You're just retaining a ton of water, achy joints, all that. Those are symptoms of an allergy, a food allergy, possibly an autoimmune response. There's what I would do initially was I would just start to look at what I'm eating. Mm-hmm. What am I consuming? There are common lists. And this is the thing that's challenging, that can be really frustrating as a person, is your body does change. So sometimes a food that used to bug you a lot earlier in life, maybe it won't later, and vice versa. Excuse me. Wow. And so being willing to walk down that path, there are a lot of really good now. It's become a lot better tests you can do for food allergies. You can also there could be something in your environment causing it, like mold, toxic mold that you maybe don't know about in your home. Right. So number one, again, is yay for noticing it. Number two, start doing a checklist, respect what's on that checklist, because again, you'll have grief possibly if it means something needs to leave your life in terms of what you've been consuming or eating. Definitely, if, find a doctor that you can trust, somebody that you feel that hears you and is able to talk through things like that with you.
And is that a nutritionist or dermatologist? Well,
it depends on what the symptoms are. So I know you had that chat yesterday about a rash, right? About a rash. And so I ended up with, I've had rashes and hives several times in my life. And so this last one, it didn't itch or anything, but it's on my legs and under my arms. And I was like, dang it, what is that? And so I started, I went over to the regular doctor, and she's like, oh, I don't know. And I went over to a naturopath, and I finally went over to the dermatologist, and she said, and did a she was able to do a little biopsy punch to it. And she was just, I can't remember what she called it, but just my skin was irritated.
Yes.
So I thought, why is that all of a sudden happening? And I went, oh my gosh, I bought this new detergent. And interesting enough, it had essential oils in it. I thought it's got to be good for me because it's got essential oils. My body hated it. I had these rashes all over my body. So now I have a no scent, no, anything type of detergent, and it was just feeling willing to go through the process and figuring things out and making the modifications and adjustments that need to happen for your body.
When it's something like that, like the soap, what is a normal time to get feedback from eliminating that soap from your life?
The normal time?
Would it be a week or?
Oh, for to see a difference?
Yes.
That's a good question, I think, because, and I don't know that I know 100% of that answer, but I know with food and the way skin and cell turnout over can be, usually say a food elimination diet is, can be like 6 weeks. And then you start to reintroduce a food item back in to see if you get the same reaction. Right. So I think it depends on how far along and how long the chronic condition has been.
Yeah.
To determine really how quickly someone will see a result. So it's being willing to, again, respect the body's ability to change. And I even went and I washed all my stuff, anything that I thought had that, the essential oils all in it. And I wish I could remember how long it was, but I did start seeing a change, probably within a week to 2 weeks, and then it was gone. Maybe within 6 weeks.
Even if you go to a dermatologist or a naturopath, you're going to have some learning curve because they're going to give you, well, this could be this, and then, give you this. Okay, let's go back through, because it's all an experiment to some extent.
Yeah.
What is it that's interacting with your body or going through your body that gives you this? So I think it's important to realize you won't get a definitive answer sometimes when you go to the doctors.
Yeah.
It's I love your sleuth response.
Yes.
I'm a sleuth. And you a detective of your own body.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting.
Yeah. And when I work with clients and I'll have them start out, when they decide to work with me, we do a food journal. And my biggest thing is that we don't want to look at the journal as a shame journal. It's not that at all. And I'm trying to make sure don't change anything for 2 weeks. I want you to write down everything that you've been doing, because that way, what can happen then we start to modify things and change, then we as a team can see if anything's happening different. Yeah. What's been really fun though is that and I say, you're not bringing me the journal in shame. That's not, leave shame at the door. In fact, just kick it out of your life. This is just science. This is the response I'm getting. Okay, I eat this, and the idea too is when you're consuming something, do you get itchy skin? I can't drink herbal teas either. It's such a bummer. I start itching my skin. I get
really?
Yeah, I've learned I'm very susceptible to different things. And I want to thank my mom's side of the family for that. So anyway, but I know when I've eaten something that I'm sensitive to, too much, like gluten, for example, dairy, whatever, I get very anxious. My whole intestine tract will start to ache a bit. I'm moody. I don't have any energy. And so the journal is just to figure those things out. Okay, this is what I have for breakfast. This is what happened. This is what I have for lunch. This is how I kind of felt later. This is that, this, and that. But what's fun is then by the end of that or midway, they're like, they want to start making changes within that couple of weeks of, no, we're not changing anything. But the brain starts to learn, when you read that journal, it also is learning this equals pain. This food here equals pain over here. Oh my goodness. That's what happened to me. It was like, I never connected the two. I knew I didn't feel good, but I would eat something, I wouldn't feel good. So then I go get a big glass of milk to try and cover up the stomach ache. And I'm not supposed to have milk. And I grew up on a lot of milk. And so that's a lot of reason why I would gain weight was I would eat, my stomach would hurt. So I cover it up with something else. And I'd eat some more to cover it up with that. I didn't feel good. So I'd lay down. So I wasn't exercising, and then when I did exercise, it was more a punishment to myself. It wasn't, hey, let's see what this incredible body can do. It was like, this body is horrible and I'm going to beat it up,
Right.
So anyway,
Yes.
but
Now,
go ahead.
what about you having mentioned the exercise? I see so many people, I live in a neighborhood and I see so many people walking. And so you sometimes get different advice from different people as to how much to walk. Now, there's no question that walking is great for your mind, your body, your weight, it's the number one hero exercise, I think. That's my opinion. But there are so many benefits from walking. So how do you start your clients out? With 30 minutes, hour? Do you have a starting point?
So everyone is different.
Yes.
So I may be working with someone that already walks, 30 minutes a day, and or I'm with somebody that has not even left their home, in a long time.
Yeah.
And so when there's somebody that's not been doing anything for a long time, the win is just getting those shoes on. If their mind is saying, hey, I don't have time to do this, and is putting up a big roadblock, I said, set the timer for 5 minutes out. And when the 5 minutes is up, you come back, and we'll do that for the first week, the next week. And then their mind's like, okay, I can handle that, because a lot of it, again, is your brain is just fighting anything that's different. It doesn't, it thinks we're winning because we're still breathing when we get up, and so it's educating it that we do have time to get out for 5 minutes, one way back. And for me, even working from home and things like that, I think a lot of us now, we're not as active as we were by going out, maybe going to an office or working at a gym or doing whatever. So I have a timer, and I'm like, okay, all right, brain, you don't think you have time to go, and this stuff on the computer is more important. We're going 15 out and we're going 15 back. And then midday, we're going to do it again, and once it cued into that, it doesn't fight me as much, but I'm all for whatever I say now, and to somebody that's not at this point with their comfort level will be probably going, I can't do that. I was there, I promise. But it's a great day when I'm doing 5 miles, 6 miles, and I'll interval a little bit of a run in there. And I'm not a distance runner, but I feel so much better. My brain feels so much better. And if you break it up, that's fine. Maybe it's 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the middle of the day, 10 minutes. That's
you can break it up instead of doing it all at once.
Yeah, break it up. I mean, honestly, that's better than just saying, I don't have time. Because a lot of it is that brain's going to go, I don't have an hour to spend. But I'd like to challenge you. What are you doing? If anyone is binging Netflix right now, you have time to go for a walk. So, and where it finally changed for me too is having these conversations with the side that wants to be really doesn't want to do it, and the side that's like, come on, let's get up and go, and kind of laughing at these conversations and this disruptive, the pull back and forth is, I find humor in it now more than before. I would weigh so heavily on myself for having thoughts of, that lazy side, the one that doesn't want to do anything. And I feel like I was a bad person, but it's just part of the brain that's like, yeah, I don't want to do it. Well, and educating it that it's going to feel better. And then we can watch TV without any guilt if we just get out there and do it, So.
Well, talk about a little bit about the brain fog, because when we get into our older years, that brain fog starts so early in life, and it's because of diet, of course.
Yes.
But then there's also just some natural aging that causes some of the brain fog. So what is that about?
Well, yeah. So I know what I know of the brain. I'll say this too, I'm not an expert on the brain, but what I do know from my studies, books I've been reading, everything like that, is the brain is more able than we have ever thought to regenerate, its neurotransmitters. Yeah. So if we, as its, guide and being responsible for the brain, make sure we do things to help it stay pliable, help it learn. One of the biggest things you'll notice too, there's the brain fog, and then our coordination tends to go down as and so one of my biggest focuses is you've got to keep moving, because you don't, and here's another thing with thought processes. People, I think the assumption is you retire, and so your brain's not as active. Yes. Well, it's just like a muscle that you're not doing a little bicep curl. It's going to get weaker and weaker. We've got to use it. So practicing balance. There's what's called proprioception, meaning you have awareness of where your body is at all times. That can get lost as we get older. So practicing balance, walking, making your body move. I've seen too where if you close your eyes, can you touch your nose pretty easily? And some people can't do that anymore, and they have to practice because they've lost the awareness of where their hands are in relation. So there's that. Sugar is one of the worst things we could do to our bodies and our brain. It is not good for us, and especially as we age, and they're finding out more and more about these onsets of dementia and Alzheimer's and the connection of that to how our brain deteriorates, and it's not able to send the necessary signals, and it loses its ability to remember. So, and they're also finding by the time you have a symptom, it's actually been going on for a long time. So again, the analogy that you can do stuff when you're younger, it's just setting us up for later. And I do know, there's DNA aspects too, but there's also the science of genetic expression now. You may have the DNA, but we all hold the key to that DNA expression by how we run our bodies. And so that's where it's so important to know and then live in a way that is respectful of that. But the brain fog, if you start getting it, look at your food. If you're on a lot of prescriptions, that can mess with that can really be that can be challenging. That can hurt. They can damage. They work for something over here, but then they damage something over there. And so I would look at everything. You're eating, consuming. Vitamin deficiencies, vitamin D, deficiencies can cause a big challenge. So again, exercise your brain, exercise your body, give that brain everything, nutrient dense foods that are right for you. So, and that'll help it. And do those Sudoku things, the puzzles that,
oh yes,
make it do math, make it perform.
So tell us about your book.
Oh sure, yes. So
how does one use your book?
Pardon me?
How does one use your book?
Oh, wonderful. Yes. So I co-authored it with my dear friend. I met her in school. She actually lives in Santiago, Chile.
Uh-huh.
And when we were going through school, we realized even though we were like 6,400 some miles apart, we had very similar childhood experiences, body challenges, and things like that. And we realized it wasn't that we didn't know what would, how do I want to say it? So there was some confusion in terms of what was healthy for us to eat, but it was more about our mindset, our willingness to go along a journey and learn and take care of our body. That was the biggest challenge. So the book, you actually, it's meant to be your journey with food and with you to get you launched onto a path that will create lifelong health and change for you. So it starts out with actually a questionnaire, and the questionnaire, the way the questions are answered is to help you decide what chapter you maybe should read first, because sometimes, you read through a book and it may have been chapter 8 that really would have made so much of an impact for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the others would have benefited that, but this one chapter would have been the ideal one. So it has, journals in it, questions you answer. And it also, we have a website that goes with the book that when you buy the book, the website's in there and you can go and sign in and you can download more worksheets or journal sheets for free. Yeah. And so the idea is that my hope is that anyone that utilizes the book, just that poor book gets like written on and just tattered and messy. And then the other thing is, like you said, as life goes on, things change. So let's look at the pandemic for example. So I thought I had all this all figured out again. And then all of a sudden, the stress of the pandemic, my studio partner and I closed our studio. All of a sudden, I'm like, great. I was in the construction industry during the housing crisis, lost my job. And now I'm in this one where I have to, I can't see people in person. So I had to change, and so here was another, life will change on a dime and we don't. So the more we can be settled with, at least we know how to take care of our body.
Yes.
I navigated this so much better, but there were things I still had to kind of go look through the book. What's stress, where are my stressors? What do I need to work on? Oh, this is different now. I'm not moving as much. That's why I started putting on some weight, because I was still eating the same as I was when I was going to the studio and active all day. So, but this time it was, okay, so I'll just make that little adjustment. I need to start doing those walks because I'm not doing, and so my brain was processing through things a bit different this time. So the book is meant, you may need to revisit it as things change in life. And
we actually named our weight gain the COVID weight.
I know, the COVID,
referred to it as COVID weight.
Yes,
because we put on so much weight during that time of just simply being sedentary.
Yeah.
Eating to handle the stress.
Yep.
But I want to interject another thing that we did discuss yesterday when we were doing our pre-call for today's show, that sometimes it's really important to see who you're hanging out with.
Yes.
If you're hanging out with a woman that loves to eat chocolate, that loves to talk about how much she hates exercise, I don't care how long you've been friends. You need to make a decision how much time you hang out with that woman. Because her words and her actions are taking from your health.
Yeah.
We don't even think about it. We think it's so subtle. We've been with Mary Sue for 25, 30 years, and we love her to death, but right now she's pulling you down.
Yeah.
I see that. I went out with a group of girls the other night, which I don't always do, but I mean, the conversation automatically went to can't do this, can't do that, laugh. And because I am a coach, I was going, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that.
I know, and it's hard to sit in that environment as coaches or anybody that's actually aware. It's hard to sit there and you feel it. You feel the weight of it.
So I know you may have addressed that. I don't know if you did in your book, but
I did.
Girl.
Yeah, we talk about is there a relationship? Are there relationships in your life that are not supporting you? And sometimes that means you've got it. Maybe you won't be, you'll still be friends, but you need to be more distant from that person. My husband and I, we love to go crabbing up here in the Seattle area. And the one thing when I started crabbing, which I didn't know in the very beginning, was you put the crab in the bottom of a pail and you can stack a ton of them on top of each other without a lid. You don't have to put a lid on because they will always grab each other. One's about to get out, one will grab it and drag it back into the bucket. The other one's about to get out. They will drag each other back into that bucket. You don't even have to put a lid on it. And that is what happens when we are with people that are like what you just said. I can't do this. I can't do that.
Oh, priceless, Tracy.
Yeah.
It is wonderful. I love that image.
So think about, are you going out with a bunch of crabs that are going to just keep yanking you down? Because they don't want to see. I remember I also had a friend when I was young. Anytime I wanted to improve myself or be better or push the envelope, it made her very uncomfortable and she didn't like it. And it got to where I had to, the way I dealt with it at first was I quit telling her that I was doing these things. And then I started to just not call her and I started to separate myself because she didn't want me to be better than her. Or anything like that. And it just wasn't healthy. Yeah.
Well, Tracy, we have come to the end of our time.
Oh,
and I could go on. I could go on. We knew this yesterday. We could go on and on.
I know.
But tell our listeners how they can go to your website and they can, if they have questions, how do they get to you?
Yes. So my website is tracycromwell.com. So TracyCrom as in Max, WELL.com. And you can learn a bit more about me there. And then there's also some areas where you can contact me. And there's a link to schedule a complimentary where you just talk to me. There's no obligation. I'm not a hard sell person. If you want to talk to me for 50 minutes, I'm there for you. Complimentary. Nice. You can also, if you're not ready for that, check out the book. It's you can order it on Amazon or anywhere. If you've got a favorite independent bookstore, you don't want to order it through or whatever, it's there. Your personal journey with food.
Do you have a link on your website or do you?
Yes. Yes. Go to the website. You can find my podcast, my links to the book. And a link to reach out to me. You can follow me on social media as well, Instagram and Facebook if you like as well.
And your podcast, I love that.
Yes.
Podcast, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I started, this is one thing I wanted to do, which again, with COVID, it really helped me get the time or stop the excuses that I didn't have time to do it. And it's called Your Personal Journey with Food. And my goal with this podcast is we talk about, I do solo podcasts and I also bring on guests.
Beautiful, yes.
And the idea is that in the book, I have what's called our life radar. And we talk about, it's about finances, career, education, joy, creativity, relationships, food, exercise. I may have missed something then, but anyway, so my goal is to bring guests on that are part of every part of your life, because our food relates to everything we do. Our finances relate to everything we do. Our relationships relate to everything. So we're all connected. And so the podcast is based around that. And so
wonderful.
Find that too.
I like that. Yes. So I usually sum up by asking a question. And if you were to advise somebody that's gone through a life change with their food, what would be one of the main thing that you would give them encouragement on?
It's never too late. It
Yeah.
isn't. We can say it is, but um, and on top of that is that our bodies are a miracle. They are incredible. And so I was going to write it off myself. And I was at that state. And it's just never too late to give yourself that opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. We tend to think it's just why I'm so old, or I'm so something.
Yeah.
We have those excuses, but yeah, it's awesome. Thank you, Coach Tracy.
Thank you.
It was great fun having you on the show, and I appreciate that you gave us your time.
Oh, and I appreciate you having me on. It's been an honor.
So, my dear listener out there, I really love, you know how I always encourage you to share, 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 share. Remember, it's connection and support. And you know the people out there that would love to hear this message. Now, there's some really good rewards. The book is a good reward, a nice tool for everybody to change their life, to start making those baby steps, maybe. So you do want to look for the book, go for the book, but share this podcast with your friend that's needing the support now, and with others that you feel would get benefits from the message. So as usual, your challenge is that share, share, share. And also this week, think about that small thing you're going to do for you. Will it be exercise? Will it be looking at your friendships? Will it be changing your food? What will it be? You might want to go to her website, Tracy's website, to take a first look at what she might recommend, or her podcast, of course. So thank you for being here today. As always, I love knowing that you're out there listening and that I can share these wonderful women with you. Thank you for being here today. Have a great week.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.